Maybe you're like me and dreaming of financial independence and early retirement, or you just want to supplement your current income to put some bling in your life. Then you've probably heard about the 4% rule, and maybe you've already calculated the sum that you need to retire early, your FI number. So did I, and then I started looking deeper into these studies that came up with the 4% rule, and I did my own calculations. And now I'm here to tell you that the 4% rule is not for you if you're on the road to FIRE and need your money to last longer than a normal retirement. Today I'm gonna share my updated calculations to the original studies, the problem with the 4% rule, and why it doesn't apply to you, and how to calculate how much you actually need to reach financial independence and retire early. But don't worry, if you stay to the end, I will also share the solution with you. As usual, I've gone through the research literature, I've opened up Excel so you don't have to, and you can rest assured that this is just not based on my own mumbo jumbo. So it's not a secret that I'm dreaming of financial independence. I don't know if I would like to retire fully, but at least I would like to have the choice to do so if I wanted. I have a great job, but it isn't that secure. So it would be great to at least have financial independence as a security should my employment come to an end. So one of the first things is to figure out how much money I would need to be financially independent, my FI number. This would be the money I need so that my investments and passive income could cover my expenses and sustain my lifestyle without having to work my ordinary 9-to-5 job. So the amount of money needed is of course based on how much you need to sustain your lifestyle and live the life you want. And to figure out how much you need, you also have to know how much you can safely withdraw without risking depleting the portfolio entirely. This is what is called a safe withdrawal rate, and this is where the 4% rule comes in. The 4% rule is based on two studies. We have the one from Bengen in 1994 and the one called the Trinity study published shortly after. And what it basically says is that you should be able to safely withdraw 4% of your capital to live off the first year, and then from the second year on you adjust this number for inflation. So say that the inflation was 2% during the first year, then the second year you should withdraw 2% more than you did the first year. This means that if your portfolio started at 1 million, say, and you started withdrawing 4% from this portfolio, which is 40,000, then the next year you should withdraw 40,000 plus 2% extra to cover for the inflation. So this would be 40,800, so 800 more than the first year. This effectively also means that after the initial year, your withdrawal rate can become more or less than 4% depending on how your portfolio performs relative to inflation. Then there have been some other studies or variations proposed on how to do this best, but this is basically the original idea. Here's the reason why this rule doesn't apply to you if you want to retire early. The main reason is that this rule was built upon the assumption of someone that is retiring normally at the age of 60 to 65 and wants to have a minimum of 30 years of withdrawal without risking depleting their portfolio. Now, if you want to reach financial independence and retire early, most of us probably expect to live longer than another 30 years. So we would need our portfolios to last a lot longer than this. Maybe you want to retire when you're 40, say, well then probably you would want to have money for longer than until you're 70. And by the way, these studies were also based on portfolios of 50% intermediate term treasury notes and 50% stocks. And the withdrawals are assumed to be from a tax-deferred account, meaning that taxers are not taking into account. So clearly there is a lot going on here that is not directly applicable to the FIRE movement and the strive for financial independence and early retirement. So what Bengen showed in his original study was that with a 4% withdrawal rate, it was possible to enjoy at least 35 years before the money was all used up. For most of the starting years, it was possible to make the money last at least 50 years. He doesn't show what happens after 50 years, but it really is super dependent on when you start to withdraw your money, and would you really want to take the risk that probably your money will last for your entire life, but there is a possibility that they won't? I for one would not want to risk having to take a job at 80 years old or whatever age I would run out of money. The older we get, the higher the risk, of course. And by the way, there is no difference if you're actually selling off stocks and bonds for your withdrawals or if you're getting this income as dividends when you don't have to sell off anything. If you're withdrawing 4% or getting 4% paid out as dividends, you are still reducing the value of your portfolio with the same amount. So you're not safe from depleting your portfolio just because you're investing in dividend stocks instead. Alright, so after I realized that the 4% rule was actually constructed for normal retirement and not applicable to early retirement, I just needed to take a closer look at the numbers myself. Also, of course, because these early studies was done in the early 90s, so I had almost 30 years of new data I could also take into account to see whether anything would have changed to these earlier assumptions since then. So I open up Excel so you don't have to. And hey, give me a like if you appreciate my work put into this video. It really helps me to know what videos you would like to see more of in the future. Okay, so I looked at the 100% stock portfolio following the S&P 500 from 1929 to 2020. So almost 100 years of data. And here's what I found. With a 4% withdrawal rate and then adjusted for inflation, if we only look at the portfolios lasting 50 years or more, then the failure rate is 14%. I don't know about you, but I don't want to take a risk of running out of money early. So if the risk is 14%, the risk is 8% or 1%, it's all too much risk for me. I need a 0% bulletproof, no risk of depletion portfolio. So I kept looking at what happened if I reduced the withdrawal rate to 3.5% instead. It did help a bit. Now we have only 3 starting years running out of money early. And at 3.4% withdrawal rate, we have only 1. But at 3.3% withdrawal rate is where we hit the safe point with no portfolios failing. Just to be safe, I would probably go for a 3% flat rate. And bear in mind that we are now not taking taxes or fees or such into account either, so perhaps go even a bit further down just to be entirely safe. So what I've found going up to present times is actually what Bengen also showed for his portfolios of 50 stocks, 50 bonds up to the 90s. That a 3% withdrawal rate was safe and then the money should at least last for 50 years. Basically, he also said that 3.5% should be possible, and if you reduce the exposure to stocks, you will actually improve your success rate by not losing as much as a 100% stock portfolio would do during stock market crashes. But the maximal possible value that the portfolio could reach would also, of course, be lower. So this is where you need to decide what is most important to you. So to decide on the optimal stock bond ratio for you, you have to ask yourself how much volatility you're able to stand and what's the goal with your money, more than to support yourself, of course. Do you want to leave something for possible heirs, or should it be completely depleted in the end? This will all affect how you should optimize it, and there's no need to change the initial asset allocation as long as your goals don't change. In my case, I haven't actually considered this until now. I was just assuming that the 100% stock portfolio would be the most optimal allocation, and I'm not that sensitive to volatility, so probably this would be fine for me. We also do have to keep in mind that this is based on US stock market data, so it might not be exactly translatable to where you're at either or where you're investing. And this is based on historic data, which is the best we have to base this on, but we still can't predict the future with it. Anything can and will probably happen. And here I only looked at the 100% stock portfolio, but would you guys be interested in a video where I go through different combinations of stocks and bonds and possibly find the optimal ratio for the highest possible safe withdrawal rate? Let me know down in the comments below on this video. And hit subscribe so you don't miss out on the sequel. Okay, so now that we've come to the conclusion that a 3% withdrawal rate would be fine, then how do we actually come up with the fine number that we need? Well, first of all, you need to know your monthly expenses and how much money you want to have each month. And this is of course dependent on how you want to live your life. Do you want a really luxurious lifestyle, or do you want to be more towards a really minimal lifestyle where you're trying to save as much on your expenses as possible? But let's say that you come up with the conclusion that you need 3,000 a month to happily live ever after. Well, first we need to know how much this would be on a yearly basis. So we take this number and multiply it by 12, which gives us 36,000. So now 36,000 needs to be 3% of the total portfolio. So to calculate what the total portfolio needs to be, we need to divide 36,000 by 3%, or 0.03, as it would be written in decimal form. And the total portfolio then comes out to be 1,200,000. So this would be the total amount that you need to safely withdraw 3% from your portfolio a year. And hey, if 3% seems too low to you, then there are some things that you can do to get by on a higher withdrawal rate. The lower the possible withdrawal rate, the more money we of course need to start with before we can call ourselves financially independent. If you only want to withdraw 2% instead of 3%, with the same example as before, then your starting portfolio would need to be 1,800,000 instead of 1,200,000. So the less you want to withdraw, the more you need to start with. And if you can withdraw a higher percentage, then of course you need less to start with. There are 3 things that affect the possible withdrawal rate. First of all, it's the time. So how long time do you actually planning to live on these funds? If you expect only a 30-year retirement, then a 4% withdrawal rate would be fine. If you need money to last only 20 years, then a 5% withdrawal rate is possible. And if you want to go to 6%, you can expect your money to last around 15 years in the worst case scenario. The second thing that affects the possible withdrawal rate is the portfolio allocation. So in which assets are your portfolio invested? Is it 100% stocks, or a mixture with bonds, or something completely different maybe? Is it cryptocurrency? Well, then your retirement plans are up for a wild ride. How you choose to allocate your assets will of course also affect your personal outcome. And the third thing affecting the withdrawal rate is your spending flexibility. So how flexible are you with your spending habits? Some of our expenses are of course fixed, like housing expenses, insurance, etc. But some are flexible, like going out to eat or shopping, you know, things like that. So then the question is, are you willing to or able to be flexible around these expenses when the economic situation changes? Can you commit to spend more when the market is going good and less when the portfolio value goes down? Then you might just have bought yourself some extra withdrawal space. Maybe you're even willing to pick up a temporary gig if the portfolio value declines. Chances are, of course, that those jobs will be harder to come by if the stock market crashes and the economy starts to decline. But this can also increase your withdrawal time. You can also withdraw more or need less money invested to initially reach financial independence if you plan to still keep a side hustle and still earn some supplementary income, of course. This could be something that you can do more on your own terms instead of a regular 9-to-5 job. If you're planning to retire early, it's probably anyway not just so you can sit around at home and watch TV all day. Most people will increase their well-being if they find some kind of purpose in their lives. And many of the well-known FIRE personalities are in fact working, just not traditional jobs. They're making money off blogging, YouTube, selling books, and being invited speakers, just to name a few things. So if you can supplement your funds by having some side income that you might not even consider work, then it goes without saying that your money will last longer. So for me, as a side income, I would of course love to get this channel monetized. So if you like this content, consider subscribing. I always make sure to pack my videos full of value, go through research literature on the subject, and do my own calculations. If you subscribe, it will help me out tremendously and is completely free for you. Then let me know in the comments that you subscribe and hit the notification bell so I can see you all next time.